Title: Reality Distortion. It was a late Friday evening when Jenna Moore finished her last shift at the local diner, her heart pounding with excitement. A new horror flick premiered that night at the old cinema downtown, the kind her friends had been buzzing about for weeks. For Jenna, the allure of the big screen was irresistible. She always found herself deeply immersed in the stories unfolding before her. As she entered the old theater, the amber glow of the marquee flickered ominously. The air inside was thick, a mix of stale popcorn and forgotten dreams. She settled into her seat, sinking into the plush red upholstery as the opening credits rolled. The movie, titled Unbound Realities, followed a group of friends who unknowingly unleashed malevolent spirits from their favorite horror films. They were drawn into a twisted nightmare as classic horror icons came to life and hunted them down in a frenzied chase through the cinematic realm. Jenna watched, entranced, as the film progressed. She chuckled at the familiar cliches, the unsuspecting group, the eerie atmosphere, the moments of suspense. It wasn't until the credits rolled that she felt something stir in her gut. The theme about characters breaching the fabric of reality lingered with her, long after she left the theater. As the cold autumn breeze whipped through the streets on her walk home, Jenna couldn't shake the sense that something was off. She glanced around, half expecting to see a dagger-throwing figure lurking in the shadows, but the street was empty. She chuckled to herself, feeling foolish. After all, it was just a movie. That night, as she drifted off to sleep, Jenna had vivid dreams filled with flickering shadows and monstrous laughter. The boundary between film and reality began to blur until she started to awaken in a setting that felt too familiar, a dark and grainy landscape adorned with the silhouettes of iconic horror characters, all hauntingly familiar. Morning broke too soon, and Jenna jolted awake in her own bed. The dream lingered as she rushed to get ready for work. Yet, the unease hung in the air like a thick fog. As she flipped on the television, an unsettling news report interrupted her morning routine. A string of bizarre incidents was taking place in the city, people claiming they saw figures resembling their favorite horror movie characters lurking in alleys and parks. As Jenna stepped outside, she took note of the eerie stillness around her. But it wasn't until she reached the diner that she felt the real dread creep into her bones. The patrons were unusually subdued, murmurs of fear and disbelief swirling in the air. "Did you see the news?" a waitress muttered, her eyes wide. "They're saying the actors, they're appearing in real life." At first, Jenna thought it a mere fevered imagination, but as the day dragged on, she became increasingly aware of the hushed shadows that flitted between characters in the diner, figures that looked too real to be mere projections of the mind. Then it happened. A loud crash echoed outside, and the door swung open, revealing the unmistakable silhouette of a towering figure, the infamous Slasher, the masked killer known for his brutal reign in a series of cult classics. The room fell silent. The patrons' gazes turned toward the horror unfolding live before them. Fear took root as the Slasher's head turned sharply, locking eyes with Jenna. Panic erupted. Screams echoed in the diner, tableware clattering to the ground as patrons scrambled to escape. Jenna's heart raced as she stood paralyzed, frozen by the abject terror filling her chest. The Slasher's voice echoed, unnaturally rhythmic, "You are just the first." Quote, as he advanced, the air chilled. Jenna glanced around for an escape but saw only chaos. Customers and staff attempted to flee as the movie villain hunted them one by one. They had become prey. Just when she thought it couldn't get worse, the air shimmered momentarily, and with a flash, a new character materialized. A ghostly apparition with a haunting scream from the depths of another movie. She felt the hair on her arms rise, realizing she was trapped between two worlds. Jenna fought her instincts urging her to run and instead focused on her surroundings. The back door to the diner was nearby, an escape route hidden behind a stack of empty crates. Taking a deep breath, she bolted toward it. She burst through the exit and found herself under the dim streetlight, but the world had changed. Riddled with remnants of iconic horror scenes, the streets morphed into a hellish cacophony. Shadows emerged from every corner, taunting her, each one a character threatening to blur the line between her favorite films and this hellish reality. Fleeing down the road, Jenna sought refuge in her memories, the plot conventions and tropes she adored. She had to strategize, use knowledge from her cinematic love to find a way to reverse the madness before it swallowed her whole. As the howling laughter of horror villains rang in her ears, Jenna realized she could use their very weaknesses against them, just like in the films. With each character she encountered, she recalled their stories, found their flaws, and unconsciously dismantled their power over her. Hours later, as dawn broke, Jenna stood at the threshold of the now reversed landscape. The characters retracted, fading back into the shadows from whence they came, wails of fragmentation echoing as the demonic echo of a reel clicked off. She took one last look back, the overwhelming sensation of gratitude mixed with terror flooding her veins before the memories slipped back into the cinematic realm, destined to haunt another unsuspecting viewer. Home at last, Jenna knew better. Sometimes, the screen should remain a boundary, for the stories must stay where they belong. As she turned to shut off the television, the screen shimmered ominously one last time, displaying a flickering message. You can never escape. They'll come for you next.